Okay. So yesterday we concentrated on questions that didn't have an A value. Our main concern was the questions that didn't have an A value. Our main concern is that, like, if we looked at like word problems on the tests and stuff, we're gonna have these ugly numbers. So that's what I'm gonna try and build you towards, right? We got to get rid of that because we can't use this process unless the A value is 1. Okay, so in these questions, I've bolded the number, obviously, to get it to stand out. It's not 1. So the nice thing of what you're going to do here, and really you're just looking at the first 2 terms, right? You're just going to try and factor out the number in the first 2 terms and leave the third. For the reason, I guess it might become a little bit more apparent, like Retta was asking yesterday, why don't you do all 3? I don't think you necessarily want to write 7/3 all the way down the page, you know what I mean? So I just leave it. I don't know, you guys don't like fractions, so like we'll try and minimize the use of fractions as long as we can. We probably should do more, right? And normally I would say we probably would do more because you need them, but it's too tight for time to concentrate on little things, okay? Although fractions are big things, so you guys need them. So let's just, first things right off the top, okay? As soon as I remove this 3, I'm going to introduce square brackets. Okay. Do it black. Okay, as soon as I remove 3, and then I'm going to write what's left on the inside. It's x squared plus 3x plus 7. The square brackets you saw yesterday were helpful for the last part of the question. Okay. Now, here's the unfortunate part. You're going to have to deal with fractions regardless. So we've got to find the z value. Okay. Z value is b divided by 2 squared. All right, so we're going to get 3/2 squared, which is 9/4. Please say something if you don't understand why it's 9/4.
Why is it 9/4?
Good, thank you. The squared goes to both things inside the brackets. Okay, top and bottom. If it's inside that bracket, it's got to get squared. Because in theory, what you could do, okay, is 3 divided by 2 is equal to 1.5, but then you're going to go 1.5 squared. You know what I mean? That 2 is buried in there. You just can't see it anymore because I wrote it as 1.5. Right? Yes, Ella?
Do we work with fractions or decimals?
I would work with the... I would leave it as a fraction. Your final answer can be a decimal. That's fine. Okay? I would work with the fractions for the reason, you'll see later, but like, there's a possibility of the 3, well, there's no rounding error, first off, and there's also a possibility of the 3 knocking out a denominator or something by the end of the question, right? So you just work with the fraction. If you have a fraction in the final answer and it's a word problem, go for it. Use the decimal to state your vertex or whatever, right? We'll see that on the back. But just get in the habit, like, you guys can't avoid fractions. I mean, you can avoid them, but they're there, and you have to use them at some point in your math career. So you may as well just start doing it now. It's uncomfortable, but you're going to have to use fractions. Like, there's no way you're getting, from this point forward, there's no way you're going to avoid the use of fractions. Creating common denominators, things like that, right? You may as well just start doing it. Okay? So there's your plus minus value, right? If you remember from yesterday. So inside the square brackets there, you're going to go 3, it's x squared plus 3x. Then you're going to go plus 9/4 minus 9/4 plus 7. Okay? What's next? At this point, that you should recognize, I'm just writing some summary stuff, so you guys can write this down too if you want. You should recognize the perfect square trinomial. And I'll do it in red, the first three terms. Yeah, Retta?
Why aren't you using the, oh, is that the double bracket? Cause you said that there needs to be a double bracket.
Yeah. So the double bracket is the red ones that I just introduced. The double bracket appears because of the perfect square trinomial that exists, but you also have at the same time, like, you have this 3 floating out front. You know what I mean? If you didn't have the square brackets there, people would write this. Don't write this down. You know what I mean? People would write this, but the 3 has to multiply by this term as well. You know what I mean? Which is why the square brackets are there. Okay? You can't forget about that. Yeah,
But then if the square brackets are there, do you really need the inner brackets, other than like just
N-
to define the square?
Yeah, I'm just doing that to define like the perfect square trinomial.
What's the word after recognize?
Sorry. Sometimes I don't know. Okay. Are we okay? This isn't new. Actually, the only thing that's new is the fact that we factored out the 3, and we did that one of those yesterday. The only ugly part about this question is that we're dealing with some fractions here. Okay. So from here you can condense this, but you don't even have any this is maybe why I was saying yesterday, like, that z value is kind of a magical number or a magical value, because you're not going to come up with 2 numbers that multiply to 9 over 4 and add to 3. It's just not a thing. But you know that's a perfect square trinomial. And I showed you where the number that you're going to use comes from. It's right here. It's always whatever the value, like b divided by 2, right? So now you can condense that. It's x minus 3 by 2 squared minus 9 over 4 plus 7. And then you can put the 3 in. You get rid of the square brackets now. But remember, you got 2 things inside that square brackets. You've got this and this. Okay, so both of them have to be multiplied by it. So y equals 3, x minus 3 by 2 squared minus 27 over 4 plus 7. Okay, and then you just collect these 2 pieces on the end. How do you add those together? You create a common denominator. How do we get the common denominator? I need a 4. I need a 4 in the bottom of this one. So if I multiply it by 4 over 4, that'll work. So y equals 3, x minus 3 by 2 squared minus 27 over 4 plus 28 over 4. Right? And then you can just add them. Your final answer will be this. I kind of like those numbers might have worked out as nice decimals, but I know I haven't made any rounding errors there. I know that's exact when I go to plot that thing, right? Like, you could say the vertex is what? I know that's exact, and I know I haven't rounded anything. Okay? You want the nice questions, but unfortunately, all the quadratics we've seen written in standard form that represent real things in the real world, they don't have a 1 out front. You know? So I'm going to show you how to convert with an easy method and then actually show you the real world applications of it, right? Where the a value isn't 1 anymore. Okay? I don't know what 27 divided by 4 is. Does anybody know what that is? Oh. No. What's 27 divided by 4? Is it some long, really long, like decimal?
I mean, like it's gonna be like
6.75.
Okay, so those aren't bad, right? If it just gives you two decimals after, I'm okay. If you guys start getting 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like, you got to use fractions, okay? With all those extra decimal places. Otherwise, you're going to round it, you're going to get it wrong in the grand scheme of things. You're just going to be that tiny bit off, okay? Yeah, okay? Let's try the next one. Factor out the 2 right off the top, okay? I'll go a little bit faster on this one. If you want to watch the detailed kind of one, you can scan the QR code, okay? Okay. I need the z value. So it's 11 by 2 squared, which is 121 by 4. Okay, this isn't a bad example of like why if you leave it in a fraction form, it's not too bad, which you'll see in a sec. Okay, introduce the round brackets. That's going to turn into what is it going to turn into? 11 by 2. I may have done this question with decimals. I'm just going to try and push you guys towards fractions where I can, okay? Multiply the 2 in, okay? Into both things there. Now, here's what's nice. You're going to get 2 times 121 by 4 minus 24. Okay? One of the 2's cancels with, like that becomes 1/2, right? Everybody see that? 2 divided by 4 equals 1/2. That's why I like the fractions there, right? Because sometimes the numerator, like when you multiply the numerator, like into the numerators, the denominators can start canceling, right? So that's just over 2. Okay? Now instead of having to multiply 24 by 4 to get the common denominator, you just have to multiply it by 2 over 2, right? What's that answer? Is it 169? Negative 169 over 2? What's this collection up top?
oh, I did a decimal, I don't know
Negative 121 minus 48.
I'm just thinking that was 48 because this is 90.
48, yes, sir. Somebody can correct me if it's is it 121 minus 40 is going to be 161 and another 8, so negative 169 over 2. I was off by 10. Okay, in the grand scheme of things, you guys are probably going to end up using decimals in terms of the word problems, right? Because they're going to represent money or I don't know, dimensions, right? Decimals are ultimately going to be okay, but just remember what's happening when you use decimals. You're rounding. Okay? I would prefer to, at the very end of a question, divide 11 by 2 and divide 169 by 2 and give, then I can make the decision as to how much to round. Right? I don't want to carry things through questions as rounding errors, right? You do the rounding at the very, very end. That's my preference, right? And the preference of most people that go out to the real world and build things, right? So that they don't have rounding errors. Make mistakes and things fall down, yeah.
I kept it as a fraction until we got to 121 over 2 because it's over 2, right?
Yeah, so if you divide, yeah, Red is right. But what I'm trying to do is get you guys to go through the motion so that it's the same. So if this is divide by 3, you know what I mean? You're not just writing down decimal numbers. Okay, Red is right though. If you divide by 2, you're not gonna have these repeating decimals, right? It's gonna be something like 0.5 of something. You know what I mean? Then it's okay to use a decimal. Because it's the exact decimal, if you will, you know? Is that okay? A little bit harder than yesterday, but the process is the exact same. Okay? So we're gonna go down here now, take a look at a question that we've probably already seen, at least seen a similar style question anyway, right? We're gonna answer this question in a different way. Okay? A firework is launched upward with an initial velocity of 49 meters per second. The height of the firework in meters after t seconds is modeled by the equation that, okay? We already know how to do this. What's the initial height the firework was launched from? When t equals 0, right? What happens when we plug t equals 0 into the equation? What's the answer for that? 1.5. So therefore, the firework, that's a free mark, okay? Don't mess that one up. The free actually might be 3, I don't know how many marks. 3 marks, 2 marks. I might put 3 on there to kind of trick you guys, but it's really easy. 3 marks, like out of 3 marks or something. Right? Okay. I was going to say something else there about that. Might come back to me. Okay, here comes the interesting part. And I'm sorry if I didn't leave enough room, but we'll work left to right as much as we can, okay? Because there's 3 questions on the page. Just tried to fit it onto one piece of paper. Okay? What's the maximum height? How am I going to do that? You could do it one of 2 ways, right? You could find the roots, find the middle of the roots, plug that middle number into the equation, get the vertex. That seems a lot more work than completing the square and just telling me the vertex. Right? That's why we show you. You guys have to make decisions as to like what's going to be the least amount of work. There are multiple ways to do all of these things. But you don't want to sit here and have to write down all these lines of work to get using the quadratic equation. Then find the middle of those 2 answers, then plug that answer into the equation. Like, it's too much work. Just complete the square. That's why we show it to you. Right? So the thing with this one is, it's not a nice nice equation. So we're gonna have to divide the negative 4.9 out. Okay, and what's left? T squared. What's 4.49 divided by 4.9?
That'd be negative.
Sorry, yeah. Negative 10.
Wait, shouldn't you take out, or, never mind, or, no, never mind.
Okay, we're gonna do the other two questions that are on the sheet after. Okay, they're a little bit different. I'm gonna give you guys some more time. Try some questions, okay? Now what? This one's kind of nice. I'm not gonna have as many fractions as this one. What's the z value? Oops, not divided by 2. Negative 5 squared. Right, come back to that in a second. Let's write the next line. What am I doing?
What? What's 5 by 5?
Sorry.
You have your copy?
No, it's still sitting in the canteen. You guys good? You caught that? It's good. Catching things I'm doing wrong now. It's good. Tells me you know what you're doing. Right? Now what? Introduce your round brackets. What's nice about the first three? They turn into t minus 5 squared. Where'd the minus 5 come from? Over here. Right? The unfortunate part is we still have this ugly 4.9 floating out front. Okay? Then we have minus 25 plus 1.5. Second to last step. Multiply the 4.9 into both things that you have inside those square brackets. All right, so we're going to get y equals negative 4.9 t minus 5 squared. What's 20? Can somebody do negative 25 times negative 4.9? Is that 100 and something?
Yeah, it's gonna be like right around like
Yeah, you're probably pretty 118 maybe. Yeah?
122.5.
That's wrong. I was wrong. Okay, is it positive or negative though? It's positive because you have a negative times a negative. So it's positive 122.5 plus another 1.5. Okay, that's plus 0.5 is 23, 124. Vertex, sorry, I didn't leave you guys a lot of room. 5 and 124. So you could write a therefore statement that says, here's the two pieces of information you can find from this. How high did the firework go? Paul, yeah?
Like where did the y equal go on the third one?
I just forgot it, sorry.
It's like a mark off, right?
It's a mark off, yeah. Yeah. Sarah,
Isn't it negative 5? Because,
what's the original form look like always?
oh, wait,
Okay, so if it looks like, this is a good question, because it's still gonna, people are still gonna make this mistake. If the equation looks like this, with the minus in between, then h is what it is. If it somehow magically becomes positive, h must have been negative. in order to make that two negatives positive, right? You're always kind of thinking back to the original, the way that's kind of supposed to, or the parent, not even the parent, just the general form of a vertex form in an equation, a parabola. Oh my goodness, we're struggling today. Okay, so what's the vertex? Sorry, we already answered the vertex. My question is, relative to the question, how high did the rocket go? 124 meters. And how long did it take to get to 124 meters? This is a two-part question that I'll ask you in one question. Gotta answer both of them. 5 seconds. Because remember what you're modeling, right? If you drew a graph of this thing, you're gonna have time on one axis and you're gonna have height on the other.
Is that just like writing the max value at 124?
Yes, it's an optimal value. You guys are telling me the optimal value. You reach the maximum height of 124 when t equals 5. That's why I show it to you like that. Takes 5 seconds for the rocket to reach a height of 124 meters. That's much, much faster than, like, look, that was a tiny amount of space. Yet somehow we were able to come up with an answer. Can you imagine trying to do all that work with the quadratic equation and finding the middle of two values and then plugging that into the equation and then way too much. Sarah, yeah?
For the test today, when we do these kind of questions, do you want us to use this equation or the quadratic equation? That's what unit 5.
I'm glad you asked. In my solution for this test today, I used completing the square. Because under normal circumstances, we would have gone unit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So by this point, you would have already seen completing the square. It would have been the preferable choice, right?
So is it up to us?
I'm gonna say it's up to you. I'm not gonna say yes, do it this way because this is brand new and keep in mind, like sometimes it might be preferable to do it the other way. I might have set a question up in a way that it's preferable to use the other way. Okay? So to answer your question, I would prefer you all to just do whatever was from Unit 5 and not stress about completing the square for today, because if you make a mistake on that, what am I going to do for you? You know what I mean? At the very least, you've all had an experience working with the quadratic equation and finding the middle of two values and plugging that value. Like, I would just do it that way for today. But I'm not, if you get the right answer, you get the right, I'm just looking for the right answer. All right, it's up to you guys. Okay? Is that good? We'll do those other two questions after in period 2 today, okay? We'll lead off with those. They're a little bit harder.